Greetings YouTubers, here's a quick video about the ring compressor which I bought with a known fault. So it lit up on the display, you could see the LCD, but as soon as you press the button to run the compressor, the motor blips on for a moment and stops. And no matter how many times you press the motor run button, it just runs for a split second and then stops. So I've investigated the fault, taking it apart. So if you're going to take it apart, it's this model here, by the way. There's a number that looks similar. So this is the one where you can actually set the pressure with a knob on the front, and then it pumps up until it reaches that pressure. Now, what I discovered is to get it apart, you've got to take off the wire spool. So this is going to come off. There's a single screw in the middle, which when you fold the handle back, a single screw in the middle, that just releases from here. And you've got a ring of screws. I think there's 4 around the outside and a couple on the inside, and then this just lifts off. The motor sits on some rubber mounts over the top of the circuit board. You can see the back of the display, and it's got some switches to turn on the LED and also to run the pump. Now what I found is it uses, if I can get a pointer, it uses this transistor down here to switch the ground to the black wire which goes off to the motor, this one back in here. Now, the positive has always got 12 volts on it, so it just has to switch the black wire to the motor to ground, so it does that through this MOSFET, which is being used as a switch, and the motor should run. Now, the problem is there's a processor or something underneath this black blob, and that runs the LCD and controls the MOSFET switch. Now, when it tries to switch the motor on, because of the current drawn by the motor, which is quite significant, the voltage drops, and the voltage to the processor drops below the voltage where it can continue to run. Consequently, it turns this switch off and the motor turns off, which is why it only runs for a split second and then turns off. So the question is how do you keep the power supply going to the processor whilst the motor's turning on? Well, it's a pretty poor design. What they should have done is they should have added some bulk capacitance to the circuit. So the processor runs off 3.3 volts. So somewhere in here there's a regulator. Haven't bothered to find it, but certainly you can measure it. If you measure between ground and VDD, you can measure the 3.3 volts. So all I've done is I found there's a couple of pads right next to this connector, these two here, and I've added this capacitor. So this is the 0 volt or the negative side on the right, and then on the left is the positive supply, which is going to be the 3.3 volts. So what happens is when you power up the pump, this capacitor charges up on the 3.3 volts, and then when you press the button to turn the compressor on and this MOSFET switches on to switch on the motor, then the current that the motor pulls will dip the 12 volt supply, but this capacitor will actually support the 3.3 volt supply. And this has fixed the problem, and now it works reliably. So the capacitor here, it's just 100 microfarads. I don't know whether you can read the writing on it. Don't know whether I can zoom in. Let's have a go. Too much reflection. Here we go. 16 volts. Oh, here we go. There we go. 16 volts, 100 microfarads. So it only needs to have a voltage rating of 5-6 volts, something like that, 5 or 6 volts or more, and 100 microfarads. I did try 47 microfarad, and that wasn't enough to make it reliable. It worked most of the times, but occasionally you could catch it out. If you're going to use an electrolytic capacitor like this, then make sure that the pin on the right is the negative terminal, and the pin on the left, as you're looking at it in the video, is the positive terminal. They're marked on the capacitor. You can probably find an old capacitor like this in a piece of junk electronics you've got lying around, an old radio or something, or just order one online, and hopefully that too will fix your problem. Thank you very much.